Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity and Love. Absolutely incredible experts the world over with amazing insights. They've been usually on some form or unique transformative journey. They've had to go within. They've developed a pretty deep foundation, and they've often decided to serve others or help others. We've had all walks of life. CNBC anchor, Good Morning America reporter, the youngest Delta Force operator ever admitted to Delta Force, a White House physician to the US president, healers, New York Times bestsellers, and so on. Today, coming to us from Northern Florida, absolutely one of the most celebrated US psychics. He's absolutely fantastic, great sense of humor. We've got Mark Anthony. He's a three-time author at least. He loves to write. One of them was a Pulitzer-nominated book. He's co-host of a show. Again, I'd like to welcome Mark Anthony to Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be here. I like your energy, and I like the positivity of your show.
Thank you very much. And look, I've got to do a little bit more to your intro. You've been all over the press for a long time now. You're a well-known psychic. You're evidence-based. Dr. Gary Schwartz out of University of Arizona has done a lot of validation your direction. You went to Arthur Findlay College, which is no small shakes. It's kind of the Hogwarts, but not to put it that way. When it comes to psychic medium training, you also went to Oxford, though.
Yes.
And you have a law degree. You're known as the psychic lawyer, and it keeps going on and on and on. You literally have been on like ABC, CBS, NBC, Gaia, Discovery Channel. You're well known. So thank you again for being on. Can we back up, though? And you've been doing this such a long time. My belief is that no one stops, and we try as best we can. No one stops in their own personal expansion and growth. So we always have to do a little bit of contemplation, even if it's just once a decade or something's forced it on us, car accident. Where are you now for your big picture philosophy in life? You've always had a big heart. You've always helped people. But how have you come full circle on things lately?
Where I'm at now is, first off, I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for my journey. And when I was practicing law and working to be the senior partner of a law firm, my focus was very material world based because it had to be based on all that. And then I was born a psychic medium. I've always had these abilities. My mother and my father also had them. It runs in my family for generations. And then it's a rather interesting story how I left that to come into this. But I've been very grateful the way I've been featured on so many television and radio shows. I've been on Coast to Coast AM several times, a couple dozen times. And I'm humbled how my work, my theories, my concepts have touched so many people. And where I'm at now is how to make them touch even more. I want to use where I'm at to get even farther in helping people, and through that to also help people that are struggling with neurological disorders, blindness, deafness, those struggling with cancer. So if I have any direction, or I do have a direction in my life, it's going to be continue helping people, but in a multifaceted way. So that's where I'm at now.
Okay, now let's flip this pancake upside down. What has been one of the most, your fondest memories or most fun memories? Was it a convention speaking, keynote speaker? Was it being interviewed? Was it just a particular situation where you were helping someone, but it was peals of laughter, or you still look back to it as a high note in your career?
There are so many, but one that immediately comes to mind. I was on tour of upper state New York, Buffalo. I was speaking at the Lilydale Assembly, and I was at a hotel in Buffalo, and my manager's on the phone, and she said, "What? When? Now?" She goes, "Mark, Shirley MacLaine, the movie star, her assistant's on the phone, and Shirley wants to interview you for her radio show." And I'm like, "Shirley MacLaine? Oh my God." I go, "When?" She goes, "Now." And I'm like, "Now?" And she hands me the phone, and all of a sudden they say, "Stand by for Miss MacLaine." And all of a sudden, I'm hearing her voice. Hello, this is Shirley MacLaine, and I'm totally blown away. And I would assume most of your audience probably knows who she is, but for those who don't, Shirley MacLaine was the first major celebrity to go public with her beliefs in the metaphysical and reincarnation. Before that, it was George Harrison from the Beatles, who was, you know, through his association with the sitar virtuoso Ravi Shankar, that started bringing reincarnation into Western culture. But Beatles notwithstanding, it was still looked at kind of as a fringe sort of a thing. But now here's an Academy Award winning actress. She used to be part of the Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford. I mean, and all of a sudden she went out with her beliefs on reincarnation, psychic phenomenon, alien encounters, and brought it from the fringe to the mainstream. And certainly she caught a lot of flack from that. People were making fun of her and all that, but she just blew it all off. Well, this happened probably about 8 or 9 years ago, and Shirley's just going strong. I think she just celebrated her 90th birthday. She's still working, still making movies. She's a dancer. She's an actress. Just amazing, amazing, extremely intelligent. Written several New York Times best-selling books. And so there I am. I'm supposed to have a 20-minute interview, but we really hit it off. And so it went 2 hours and 40 minutes. I mean, Michael, it was blowing me away. And we were talking about Stephen Hawking, and he was alive at the time. And she said, what people don't understand is that Stephen really did believe in God, but more in the sense of energy on a quantum level. And she said, Stephen was a friend of mine, and I was in his office, and I saw on the wall behind him 2 pictures, one of Albert Einstein and one of Marilyn Monroe. And I said, Stephen, I understand Einstein, but why Marilyn? And then she imitates him. And Michael, we're on air. Okay, we're on air. And she goes, because her curves are more beautiful than a quantum singularity. And I'm laughing. and I said, wow. I go, hey, did you ever meet Marilyn Monroe? And she goes, Marilyn was my friend. And I'm like, whoa, I'd never really talked to anyone before who knew Marilyn Monroe. And Shirley explained that the studios were really nasty back then, and they used to play the 2 of them off against each other. She said, we're up for a lot of the same roles. And she said, and I was there with the Rat Pack the night that Marilyn sang Happy Birthday to JFK. And I mean, we've probably all seen that, you know. Well, what had happened was backstage, Marilyn was throwing a fit that she didn't want to wear that almost see-through sparkly dress. I mean, this is like one of the most iconic dresses like ever. And one of the producers said, well, that's okay, Marilyn. You don't have to do it. Shirley MacLaine's in the audience. She's your size. She'll fit into it. And so Marilyn said, fine, I'll do it. You know, so Marilyn came out and sang the happy birthday, Mr. I mean, I'm not doing a very good Marilyn Monroe. But anyway, and later on, Shirley said after that, Shirley MacLaine got cast in this movie called The Apartment. In The Apartment, she won an Academy Award for it, and it springboarded her career from being an actress in Hollywood to being a major celebrity. And at the premiere of the red carpet premiere in Hollywood, Shirley's explaining to me on air that Marilyn shows up in a full-length fur coat. And everyone was like, what's up with Marilyn? Because she goes, Mark, it was Los Angeles. It was like 90 degrees outside. Why is Marilyn wearing a fur coat? And during the movie, Marilyn got up and walked out to the lobby to go to the bar. And Shirley went out there and said, Marilyn, is there a problem? And she said, Marilyn turned to me. All right, now remember, we're on air, and opened up the fur coat, and she was stark naked underneath it. And then Shirley MacLaine says, now that I think about it, Stephen Hawking had a point. You know, so I'm laughing. And I said, wow, I wonder what Marilyn would think about that. And she said, well, you're the medium. You tell me. All right. No pressure here. All right. A major movie star who's also a major metaphysical celebrity is asking me to do a reading. And the thing is, I'm in this hotel in Buffalo, and they were in the middle of refurbishing the hotel, and it was this old rickety phone, and my manager Rocky, she's listening in because she's trying to hear everything. And I calmed myself. I took a deep breath, relaxed. And I know you're very good about teaching people about breathing and centering and focusing. And all of a sudden, I get this spirit coming through. It was Marilyn Monroe. And I started describing her, and Shirley's like, well, that sounds like her. And then Marilyn said, thank you for not doing it. Thank you for taking the high road. And there was a pause, and Shirley said, I've always wondered about that. I said, what? And she said, after Marilyn died, the studio said, well, she was working on this movie, and Shirley, we can recast you, and we'll just cut the scenes with Marilyn. And she said, I will not do that to my friend. I want to take the high road. Shirley said she actually said that. And now she's hearing it from Marilyn. And then she said, Mark, did Marilyn, was she murdered? And then it came to me. And the response was, Michael, she said, no. She said, I couldn't take it anymore. She said, Shirley, you always walk through a crowd with such grace and elegance, and you just glide through it. I felt garish. I couldn't stand the way everyone was staring at me and photographing me and criticizing me and talking about me. I couldn't take it anymore. And it was at that moment I realized I'm on the phone doing a reading for Shirley MacLaine while I'm communicating with the spirit of Marilyn Monroe. So, Michael, do I think I'll ever top that one? I'm not. I don't think so. So that's, and I've done readings for many celebrities, politicians, royalty, and yeah, that's nice and all. But the thing is, this was a person whose friend, dear friend, had died under mysterious circumstances. There's very few people in the world that could understand what it would be like to be Marilyn Monroe. And if there was one person who could, it's Shirley MacLaine. So for me, that was one shining moment that I will always cherish.
Incredible, beautiful. I love that. Okay. Talk to us about, let's go big picture and just do one of these eternal questions that's only been around for a few thousand years, whether you're in a cafe in the Middle East, 1,000 years ago having tea. Talk to us about mankind's consciousness, gentleness, kindness. What's this all about? Love. You don't see it in the news very often. Unconditional love, gentleness. What's that all about? Is there something happening for mankind? A little bit of, call it a spiritual awakening if you wish, but we'll call it awareness is on the horizon for man. How do you describe all that? What's your take?
Every great spiritual teacher since the sages of ancient India through Zoroaster, who brought us the religion that the Yazidi people still practice, through Moses, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Native American spirituality, the religions of the Pacific. All the great spiritual teachers refer to God or the divine power that many people refer to God in terms of light. They also teach us a very, very simple thing. Be nice. I mean, if you crystallize all religions down into two words, it's be nice. I mean, think about it. They all have a variation on the golden rule. Do to others the way you would like to be treated. The Buddhists say, don't do to people what you don't want done to you. It's the same thing, just in a different format. But surprisingly, all the great belief systems have very similar concepts. It's all about peace, love, understanding, and compassion. The problem is that level of Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Krishna consciousness, God consciousness gets shoved to the side when the human ego comes into the picture. In the work that I do, I explain my concept, the electromagnetic soul. We can talk about that later on, but the brain is the host of the soul. It did not create it. So think of your brain as like a computer hard drive that hosts the problems on it or programs on it, but it didn't create them. But the ego is created by the human brain. And I refer to ego as an acronym for edging God out. Think about it. Whenever people do something unkind, whenever you, I don't mean you specifically, but I'm talking to the audience, think of whenever you've done anything unkind, cruel, or hurtful to another person, were you acting out of love for that person, or were you acting out of me, me, me? So when we get me as center of the universe, that begins to block this consciousness. When you look at world history, was there ever a golden age? Was it during the Roman Empire? Was it during the Crusades? Was it during the Great Depression, World War II, Vietnam, the Cold War? Anytime, there's always been these ego-driven personalities that are going absolutely contrary to all of that. But people say, well, why doesn't God intervene? Why doesn't God, the divine power, change things? Why doesn't our consciousness rise? I had something very peculiar happen in toward the end of 2019. I was doing readings for a lot of people, and their spirits, their loved ones had come through, and everyone was wearing a surgical mask. And I kept asking my clients, are you like involved in the medical profession? And they were like, no. And I said, and all the spirits kept telling me something about March, the next coming March. Long story short, March 2020 rolls around, and I start getting emails right and left from people saying, now we know why all our spirits showed up wearing surgical masks, is because the world was in lockdown for COVID. Okay, so the spirit world, the what I call the afterlife frequency, was very well aware that COVID was coming. But then during several readings, I heard that mankind, humanity, was given an opportunity because of COVID. And I kept getting this message, and I meditated, and the answer came to me. For maybe 6 weeks, people weren't waging war. All the world's scientists from China, Russia, Japan, the US, Europe, Israel, Iran, everybody was working on figuring out how to diagnose COVID-19 and how to come up with a vaccine. And in that time, people stayed home. The air cleared in Beijing and in Mumbai, India. People could finally see the skyline that they hadn't. Dolphins were spotted in the canals of Venice for the first time in 400 years because they've been so polluted. The ocean started clearing. Nature started rebounding. Animals were seen in places they'd never seen. In other words, we need nature a lot more than it needs us. But what was happening was we caught a glimpse. And then, of course, we had to reopen the country, and we went right back to our habits. And what I was told from the collective consciousness, which is what I call the other side, what I refer to as God, is that humanity already has the geniuses, the scientists, the solutions, and they showed us that if all of our brain trust is working together, we can solve any problem. We can cure diseases. We can solve the power problems. We can clean up the atmosphere, the waters. We can do it. The consciousness is here. The intelligence is here. The resources are here. But then what happened? Ego then took over. So we can do it. So that is what I'm saying, is that humanity can solve all its problems if we want to.
Okay, let's talk some very basic fundamentals for everybody, stuff that they're capable of. Where they put their focus is where they put their focus. How they spend their energy is how they spend their energy. And understanding the difference between whatever flows up here, ego-based, fear, rejection, worry, stress, all that stuff, versus the awareness, timelessness, no limits, love, whatever you want to call it, more consciousness, slowing way down and taking a breath, that happens here. Can you talk to us about one of those aspects, or basic listening, basic paying attention? I think every athlete does it when they're on the field or tennis court, volleyball court, or surfing in Tahiti for the Olympics, as we were talking about before the show. So they know it that way. Or an author, when they had a good day, they wrote 55 pages in a day, no try, and they didn't feel like they were beaten to a pulp. everyone knows it one way or the other, but I don't think they apply it across the board in all departments of their life. What's this all about being human?
Oh, that's a very, I think that we could do an entire show just on that. There are times when we're able to tap into the collective consciousness. And let me explain what I mean by the collective consciousness. Think of your soul as a drop of water. And when we physically die, that drop of water leaves the brain and plunges into this eternal sea of souls. So you're still an individual, but now you're energetically interfacing with other souls that are linked to other souls that are linked to other souls. And when people get into a very spiritual state, whether it's through mediumship or channeling, the channeling gets kind of a bad rap, but it's basically when you connect with the divine. In other words, meditations when you're listening to God, prayers when you're talking to God, to the collective consciousness. And when you get into this zone where you're connecting, that's when there's this unlimited supply of energy and creativity coming through. And like you said, you'll know it as an author, the words just fly out. I mean, writer's block is, I mean, talk about the ultimate, and it always happens when you schedule the whole day off to work on the project and, nothing. But the thing is, when we're able to remove the distractions from our lives. Distractions are emotional angst. They could be, physical ailments, things that cloud our consciousness. Once we do that, and you're able to tap into that. So I think it's in other words, we have unlimited potential provided we're able to tap into that. And it isn't always easy. It's a big challenge.
And what's your advice for folks? Just a couple tips. I don't want to take away from any future books where you're going to be, out there with maybe more than one book. What are a couple tips though for slowing down daily? Is it first thing in the morning? Do you do something particular, or at the end of the day, and then in between?
Find the time that you're the most creative. For me, it's in the morning. I like to wake up, have a good breakfast. I do a mile walk or so. I get back, and then it's happening. And for writers in particular, you can write anywhere from about 2 to 4 hours, and then you need to stop and recharge. And then, later in the afternoon, I do readings and things. So I'm a very structured person in how I do my day. Some people are more creative at night. Some people like to write in the wee hours of the morning. That's never worked for me. And I think it's because in my career as an attorney, I had to be up and in court by 8:30 and functioning on all thrusters. I didn't have the luxury of, I'll get to it after lunch. It's like, no. So that's just how I am. So you got to find when you're the most creative. It's also with exercise. Go when you feel most physically energized so you get the most out of it. I mean, you can go to work out when you're, worn out, and it will give you a sense of energy, but you'll get a better workout when you have that energy. So I think that's those are the tips. Also, trust yourself. When you get those ideas, jot them down. Don't be afraid to take a chance. Edgy works. Edgy works.
Okay, now, hey, I spent 15 years in or around law firms. I was a public relations guy in New York, but Fulbright and Jaworski, Weil Gotshal, top 10 firm back in the day. I helped do Lehman Brothers. So I've been around attorneys, making millions of dollars, and the stress for them. It's incredible to watch how each person handles it, the pressure, whether it's corporate, it's trial stuff, or bankruptcy. And the point of this is that's almost the quintessential example of all the different flows that mankind faces. There's a sort of slipstream of ego, thinking it ain't exactly fun to be around. And then there's a slipstream of compassion, kindness, sort of an undercurrent at a lot of the big law firms. So can you talk to us about how the legal world, how it was coming from one world into a broader pool of compassion? Because now you're an Olympic swimmer. You're like Mark Spitz. But the bottom line is you're looking back, and do you have some people, without ever naming the company, the firm, the attorney, do you have some people that'll just never talk to you again because it's just outside their realm of comprehension, but you have others who have come to you privately and said, I'd love to talk?
All of the above. When I went public with my um, mediumship abilities, what happened, Michael, is I was very close with my parents. Both of them had mediumistic abilities, and I was real close with my mom. Mom was cool. She was funny, vivacious, very gifted, but she was plagued with these horrible illnesses her entire life. But if you met her, you'd never know it. She always dressed to the nines, always had a joke, something funny to say, uplifting. And I was in my law office one day, and I was thinking about spaghetti. And also my assistant goes, hey, Mark, your mom's on the phone. And mom called and said, hey, honey, I made spaghetti. Why don't you come over for lunch? And I thought, okay. My parents live about 5 miles from my firm, so I drove over. And we had this really wonderful lunch, and she made this broccoli rabe. It's an Italian, you know, vegetable in bed, because mom was always, you got to eat broccoli rabe. It's good for your blood. It's good for iron and all this. And I remember when I was leaving, she hugged and kissed me and says, Mark, I love you so much. I'm so happy that you're my son. And I said, Mom, I love you too. And I kissed her, and but something felt so final about that. And the next day, Michael, I was in court, and the judge's assistant came into the courtroom and said, Mark, we need you in chambers right now. And I walked in there, she handed me the phone, and my secretary was in tears, and she said, your dad called, your mom died. And my mother passed in her sleep from what's known as a ventricular fibrillation. It's where your heart gives out. And from what I understand from cardiologists, that if you got to choose a way to go, that's the way to go. And after all the painful conditions she suffered with her whole life, she earned a peaceful passing. But I spiraled into this horrific depression, but I still had to run a law firm. I still had cases. So I don't know how I did it, Michael. I pushed myself. I mean, I had a job. My dad was a Navy SEAL, so he taught me, when you have duty, you got a responsibility, you got to do it. And about 3 weeks later, I was driving back from court, and this wave of grief hit me. And I pulled over into a parking lot because I didn't want to walk into my law firm in tears, because, I had to portray the leader, the lawyer, this whole persona. And this flash goes off in the car. And I look at the passenger seat, and there's the silhouette of my mom in this silver white light. And her voice fills my head. And she says, Mark, you have the gift of mediumship so that you will not be crushed by grief. But now you must help those who are suffering with theirs. All right. So I'm like, all right, I've been seeing spirits my whole life, but this was really intense. And then before I can even process that, Michael, the next message comes through. She said, Mark, it is your life's mission to help people understand that God exists, that heaven, the afterlife exists, that souls are immortal living beings, that humans can communicate with souls, and that humans and spirits will be reunited in the light that you call God when it is the appropriate time to leave your material world. All right, I'm drenched in sweat, and I fall back in my seat in my car, and all I can say is, okay. And then I'm sitting there going, I can't tell anybody this. They're going to think I'm stark raving mad. And my heart was pounding, and then it hit me as soon as I started to stabilize, that I hear about people having a spiritually transformative experience, standing on top of a mountain in Maui or whatever. No, mine was a fire hose right to the face. And I realized at that moment, Michael, that my life was never going to be the same, and that the door didn't open. It got pulled off the hinges. I got flung through it. Then things started moving really fast. And I could go on and on and on, but long story short, I got offered a job at a government agency. So then I could sell my law practice, and I was free of the responsibilities of that. My first book, Never Letting Go, came out. I brought on my manager, Rocky. She got me at a gig on MSNBC in New York City. And it was cool because we were at 30 Rock, and we were actually recording in the studio next to where they filmed Saturday Night Live. And it was like, that was cool. But after that, she got me a speaking engagement at Harvard. So we left New York City and we flew up to Boston. And so I'm getting geared up. We're walking around. It's cold because, it's December in Massachusetts, and we're drinking coffee and it's steaming, and my cell phone rings. It's the elected official, the guy that hired me, who worked for the government agency. And he said, a particular party is complaining that I have a psychic on staff. Now, he didn't hire me because I'm a psychic. He hired me because I've been managing law firms and managing people for quite some time. And he said, you're taking too much time off from work. And I said, well, it's all vacation time. And he kept going on and on and on. I said, well, let me make this simple for you, sir. I said, please consider this my resignation. He goes, okay. And I hung up my phone. And then I looked at Rocky and I said, Rocky, I just quit the practice of law. And she said, Mark, take a look around. Where are you? I'm like, Harvard. She goes, and what are you doing in an hour? I said, well, talking about the afterlife at Harvard and signing copies of my new book, Never Letting Go. She said, don't you think this is exactly where you're supposed to be? She goes, think about it. We don't have to worry about law firms, government agencies. You're free now to pursue what you're supposed to be doing. And that is how I jumped out of the frying pan into cool, calm waters.
These have been incredible. You are sharing so much. Thank you for this. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go 90 degrees. We're going to do a staple on the show, which is where I light some sage. I might need 3 lighters to get this block of sage done. But people can smell through 2 screens, and I'm still taking that in. I'm going to share just a couple quick details. I've lost 2 parents in 1970 when I was 2. My dad died U.S. Navy off the coast of Italy. It was his time to go. And when I was turning 23, my mom passed. Hundreds of people have seen them, so it's not as big a deal. There's Mike Sr., Michael Andre Ford, and Barb. And I wanted to mention, we did have the CEO of Shirley MacLaine, Britt Elders, who in her own right, yeah, she's been on the show here. She's been on a panel with 2 other guests, and they got to joint see, we'll just say galactic life, like back here and before and after the and during the show. I was gutsy. Yeah. I don't remember a thing. Okay,
yeah, Britt is really cool. Britt is awesome.
Britt's her last name says it all. Elders, like she's very wise. So I'm going to be having her on as much, and I'm already extending the invite as much as you want to come back every like 5 months. Come back on the show. Okay, I'm lighting some sage at home, folks. You got no limits. Good luck believing that. But at least for 5 minutes, ask your angels, ask the universe to get you out of your head into your heart. Catch some sage. Some people who are hyper intuitive are tasting it as I'm lighting it. I got a good burn there. We already did this before the show. We cheated just to make sure all the plumbing electricity was working. But in Florida, Melbourne area, are you catching a little sage from Texas?
Oh, yeah.
And then if you want to ask for flowers and you want to ask for Tahiti ocean waves or some sort of an ocean beach smell that can't be Florida, not out the back door there. And if anybody wants to close their eyes and have that loved one, an angel, come in as well, feel a squeeze on the shoulder or anything else that you might need, breathe extra. The mouth thing, what am I trying to say? Open mouth. It's like a volume on a stereo. Just breathe extra and get what you need. Mark, you're incredible. I'm in a gush during the show, not after. Okay, so you got the sage. Folks can play that back. No big deal. And then I'll do one more quick thing. I'll show my energy. You don't have to show yours. It's that Celestine prophecy thing. I put up 2 fingers. I totally forgot to do this before the show, but it takes 5 seconds. It's just auras, the Force from Star Wars. I'll do Yoda's voice to make you laugh, though, because I have a feeling you're going to crack up at this. It's the background is this, but blue sky is number 1. Shut off TV's fine, a black sweatshirt. And if you're cocky and confident, you've already seen them before, then anything works, you know, your dog. But let me do Yoda's voice to leave you laughing. You will be getting asked more questions for the interview. You're not off the hook. Do not. There is no try. Okay. So I'm going to put up 2 fingers. You're going to see a little squiggle of light. See with your heart. See with all of you. I think Jules Verne said that. But also it's the Zen thing. Seeing without seeing. And just what color are you seeing between my fingers, Mark?
Hold on. I'm seeing it now. It almost, it's in the yellow and orange. Yellow, like a yellow-orange.
Yeah.
Like a rust color.
I'm not crazy. You're not crazy, but we just did that for the heck of it. I'm still supposed to do one more thing. Okay. Archangel Michael.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. When people do that, every energy field has an aura. Look at the lamps behind me, like that red lamp, okay, and the light bulbs. Light bulbs have an aura. Human beings have an electromagnetic field. And there's 4 levels to the auric field: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And when we observe auras, and everybody can see them, this is not just psychics can do it, and we can all do this. And the reason that there's certain colors in auras indicate certain aspects of what's going on with the person. Now, the orange aura is associated with the orange chakra, which is in the area of the belly button, the internal organs, and that tends to mean people who are very grounded. And the thing is, you're very grounded, Michael, and that's the energy that you're exhibiting there. Think about the expressions green with envy. Guess what? When people are envious, their aura tends to emanate green light. When people are afraid, they emanate yellow light. That's where he's a yellow belly, or he's yellow with fear. So there's a lot of expressions that have come from this auric field. So I didn't mean to jump in.
Oh, no,
And,
you're doing great. This is awesome.
and also, by having it on a black background like you did, that's the best way to see an aura, either a white background or a black background. And what an aura is not is an after image. So like if you're standing in front of a white field and you step at the side and you see like an outline, that's something going on with your eye with an after image. But when you had your 2 fingers together and you're pulling them apart, you got to realize the electromagnetic field that runs through your body and the tips of your finger was interphasing, and that's why it gives this, like you can see it pulling and shaping. At first I was seeing aqua, but then I was getting orange and yellow, and then it became a rust color. So I want to explain to the audience why I was saying a rust color, and that this is not pseudoscience or some hippy dippy thing. This is electromagnetic energy that we all emanate and that we're all capable of perceiving. And when you start working with the perception of it, you'll be able to understand the things that you're seeing in it. Anyway, Michael, back to you.
Oh, no. Hey, that's incredible. And I'm going to add one thing. So suppose you do it. That's great. Shut off TV, black sweatshirt. Blue sky, though, really makes it pop. No clouds are okay. You have a twin sister, you're getting along. You can each be half the glow stick. Now, the first time a couple does it, though, they each go up at the same time down. So agree who's going to go up, who's going to go down. You can start to see your flows, which think of ballerinas, chefs in a kitchen, that one rare 5-star Michelin kitchen that they like each other. But a band that's playing really well, jamming, freestyle, that's it. It's the flow, the creative flow. And there was a point to all that. You can ask angels to come in, and this is going to shock the system. You can ask angels. I'll put up Michael in a second to give you a topic to take us somewhere in a moment. But you can ask angels to bring in images. Like they'll make butterflies coming off the stream or hearts coming off, and that will make your jaw drop. So get your light flowing. You're already doing it all the time anyhow. You're already kind of tuned in that way. But if you want a real kick, ask for a little more and just allow for a little more. Okay, we did this before the show. I'm going to put up Archangel Michael's photo. It is whatever it is. It might move a little, change color. You can ask for that if you're at home and you're already like, yeah, let's do it. Meanwhile, can you get a topic that you know blindfolded? If you're riding a bike backwards, smoking a cigarette blindfolded, you would be able to talk about this forever. What's Archangel Michael got as 1 or 2 suggestions to take us somewhere? You're really good at describing stuff.
Archangel Michael is symbolic of a protective energy, and we tend to think of angels as like the Hallmark Christmas card of, the blonde hair, blue-eyed, Northern European with wings. The way I perceive angels, because angels are non-human spiritual intelligence. People don't become angels. Angels were never human. There's a lot of spirits, okay, different types of spirits. But angels and human spirits seem to get along very well. And the way I see them, they have an anthropoid appearance. In other words, they're humanoid, but they appear to be clear, and they glow from the inside out. And the reason I believe people think that angels have wings is because the light projections seem to come and shine from their shoulder areas, which could be interpreted as wings. Think about it. Think of ancient Egyptian images of the goddess Isis with the wings. every culture has some type of being with wings and also with a halo, because that's an aura. People have been seeing auras for thousands of years. They're depicted in art. You know, the Catholic and saints are all depicted with them, but the ancient Egyptians are, Buddhist saints are, Hindu saints. I mean, they're all depicted in this way. And Archangel Michael is a protective energy. This is the energy that intervenes, that warns you, that tries to guide you. And the thing is, this will work if you listen. You see, nothing spiritual is controlling, nothing spiritual is negative, but you have to listen. And so the reason people say, well, why didn't God intervene? Well, were you listening? And that's what you have to look at. I've always been a fan of that series Vikings, and they're always talking about, oh, the god Thor. Well, if you look at it, now I don't approve of the Vikings human sacrifice and all that, obviously, but then again, in Christianity, Jesus had to be sacrificed. And I've said this in some of my lectures, and people get offended, but is Christianity predicated on human sacrifice? Because Jesus was the Lamb of God that had to die, had to be sacrificed. Now, I don't want to offend anybody. This is simply a point of discussion. But when you look at the Nordic god Thor, which would be the Greek god Ares, the Roman god Mars, that's the warrior god. And then you look at Archangel Michael, who's the warrior. So a lot of the same concepts flow through different belief systems. And Michael is that protective angelic energy that may have been perceived to be Thor by the Nordic and Viking cultures, and as Mars or Ares by the Greco-Roman cultures, and I believe as Horus in the ancient Egyptian. So you can just look at, these are universal constants. And what happens, Michael, and speaking of Michael, when we come into contact, or when humans come into contact with these entities, we tend to anthropomorphize them. In other words, give them a human face, because it's easier for us to understand that. So is Michael Thor? Is he Ares? Is he Mars? Is he Horus? Very well may be. It's simply the cultural differences that give him the different appearance and different names.
Jumping back to auras, have you seen people's auras all your life, just once a year when you turn it on, or is it like all the time and you're like, make it stop? Can you describe where you are on the curve on all this?
You know, when I was a kid, my mom and I, we'd go out to lunch or something, and we'd scan people's auras, and she'd teach me how to do it, which is kind of cool. And when I was practicing law, it really would come in handy when we were doing negotiations. Like when I was practicing with personal injury law, and we'd be doing negotiations, you'd see the clients always had these diffuse auras, which indicate that they're nervous and focused. The attorney's real tight auras around them, which means they're really intent. But I could tell when the auras would shift, when they'd go from tight to a little bit more fluid. I could always tell if we were going to get a deal or not. And you have to observe the shape of the aura. When it's real tight around a person, that means they're really anxious, really intense. If it begins to get more diffuse, they're relaxing. Then you got to look for the colors that are in it. For people that are very nervous, they tend to be all over the place. Think about in the book of Acts, ACTS, in the New Testament, the Pentecost, when Mother Mary and the disciples, Jesus supposedly, according to Scripture, had ascended to heaven, and they're praying, and the power of the Holy Spirit descends upon all of them. And how do they describe it? As a tongue of fire above their head. Well, the crown chakra, there's 7 chakras in our body, each aligns with an endocrine gland in our body, and the crown chakra is aligned with the pituitary gland. And when you look at the crown chakra, it tends to flicker and waver. Now, if you're living in the Iron Age, how would you describe that? It would look like a tongue of fire. Okay, it's like when Moses encountered the bush that burned yet was not consumed by the fire. How would you describe an intensive form, concentrated form of electromagnetic energy in the Bronze Age? Well, according to the terminology and what you are familiar with of the day. And the most powerful form of energy people know outside of lightning would be fire. Okay, so you would describe it as the bush that burned that did not burn. And the same thing in the Pentecost when you get the flickery fire, because that's how the crown chakra, and that's where our electromagnetic soul connects with the collective consciousness. It's our tether to what is greater than ourselves. So even though you may feel that you're all alone or somehow isolated, we're all actually never alone, and we're always part of something bigger than ourselves. It's just whether or not we perceive it or try to perceive it.
Okay, let's talk dream time, and just going back, what you can share. Has your mom come back a few times since then?
Oh, all the time. I get mom quite a bit, but one of the dreams that since you're asked about dreams, we have 5 main brainwave frequencies: gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta. And gamma is when we're like, that's when you're doing a calculus test and you're, doing mathematical, you're running your brain at full throttle. Beta, activities of daily living, the state we're in now. Alpha, groovy baby, it's when you start to relax, meditate, drift off. Theta is restful, dreamful sleep. Delta, very little brainwave activity, but that's important because your brain has shifted energy to heal. It's cellular regeneration. Each one of those has a range in the hertz, of hertz, and it's right around 8 hertz, which is the alpha theta border where psychic and mediumistic activity.
We lost the volume. I didn't do it. I'll mark down the time. Hold on. Let's get the volume back.
Happens. This is electromagnetic interference by spirits.
Now it's
and this is so. Thank you, Mom. This has got to be Mom doing this.
Yes, I wasn't even thinking. Hold on. I'm going to put on a photo of Joy, an angel who's the emotion joy ambassador communicator. Just can you hear a high peppy 28-year-old voice saying something about your mom right now? And then if you want to close your eyes, see your mom, or you can see her back.
Oh, I'm seeing her. Yeah, I'm seeing her.
So she came in, and we'll leave this in the show then because it was an important,
Yes, because it's at 8 hertz on the alpha theta border, and spirits, thank you, Mom, can spot that, and they bring their vibrational frequency down. You get a frequency match. And that is why so many people report contact experiences in the dream state. What those of us who study spirit communication as a science don't seem to understand yet, and we're studying this, why people like me can go from beta to alpha theta within seconds and voluntarily. It normally takes people the dream state, or people that you'll feel them around you, but you don't really know why. And there are technical reasons for this based on the pineal gland, which is the third eye chakra, about 4 inches behind your forehead. The pineal gland is about the size, between the size of a grain of rice and a small lima bean. It also contains calcite and magnetite crystals. It regulates brainwave frequencies, perception of light, circadian rhythms, secretes the hormone melatonin. And the thing is, we have a radio station in our head because calcite and magnetite crystals, when subjected to force, have what's known as piezoelectric properties, which means they generate an EM field. All right, so this is what enables people to perceive spirits, is the pineal gland. This isn't woohoo. This isn't pseudoscience. This has been studied for over a century now. Cool thing is the pineal gland is probably the most misunderstood gland in the body, and yet one of the most studied. So because it regulates brainwave frequencies when we're sleeping and other times, that is also how we tune into spirits. Also, and we spoke about this earlier, Michael, and you're showing us orbs of light. The pineal gland governs our ability to perceive light. And every great belief system from ancient times, no matter where it is in the world, describes the divine in terms of what? Light. Isn't that interesting? I think.
I'm going to show 3 photos that are not balls of light just so people can see it. 4 archangels in the middle, a fairy, and an angel in silhouette form. And then I'm going to put them right down because we're going to come back to mom in dream time. Can you share one encounter with mom? Were you on a beach? Did you go to a restaurant together? Did you just sit together? What was one moment that you wouldn't mind saying on a show?
It wasn't that long after she passed, and I was walking down this hallway, and all of a sudden I turned, and there was this giant room. Everything in the room was white, and there was this huge, it looked like a rectangular window, and I could see clouds, a blue sky and clouds wafting by. But everything in the room, the tables, the chairs, it kind of looked like a cafe. And sitting in the corner was my mother, and she was in full color, and she was wearing this dress. It was this like body length dress, and I think it looked like it was like black and blue and white, like paint strokes. It was this really cool pattern. And I walked over and I sat down, and she looked so young. My parents had me when they were a bit older. I never saw my mom when she was in her early 20s. I go, Mom, you look so young and beautiful. How? Why? And she smiled and said, because I can. She goes, we do this because, and I'm laughing, going, duh. I mean, who wouldn't want to be 22 and like perfect, physically? But then it was communicated to me that we're pure energy, we meaning spirits. Spirits don't get old, sick, tired, and die. And she said, I know that you're very upset that I died. And she reiterated that God exists, heaven exists, your soul's an immortal living spirit. She reiterated that you can communicate with souls, or people can, and that we will all be reunited in the light. And she said, this is your life mission. And then she started pixelating, said, Mom, don't go. And she says, I'll be back.
Oh my goodness. I love this. Okay. We are going to wrap up in about at least 10 minutes or so, but you're going to get some random quotes, whether they're from angels, Eckhart Tolle, Gary Zukav, somebody. Could be you. I got 18 pages of quotes here, but I got some others that are, I got a 2-pager that's just focused on compassion, ego, and the big picture for mankind. So I'll draw 3 quotes from there. Any reaction you get, you're like, I was just saying that last week. Anything would be great.
Oh, cool.
One angel described compassion as not judging, taking action with no thought. Another angel, Archangel Raphael, said compassion is releasing fears and judgments. And finally, Mac, don't call her Mackenzie, an angel said compassion is treating every moment with the awareness of a newborn baby. Where does that lead you?
I think that's how we need to conduct our lives, and that ties into the be nice philosophy of all the religions. I mean, think about it. If we all treated each other with the compassion of a newborn baby, wouldn't the world be great? I mean, who would want to wage war?
I have a quote from angels again. Compassion for all is life. This is also about acceptance for all. Regard others as yourself generously and without fixation. Believe in all. I think that's right to your point. Okay, now 3 random quotes. It could be Herman Melville. I don't know where this is going. It's always random on the show. Here we go. Dan Millman. Hidden within every experience is a lesson. We're going to pause on that one alone. That was a good one. Where along the path did you either stub your toe or you were like, whoa, I had no idea when I thought it was going to be straightforward that this was going to be one of the biggest lessons, some mini chapter, some mini lesson along the way. It could be when you had gone full-blown professional psychic, or you were still lawyering, maybe knowing you needed to shift somehow or something. Where was there a hidden lesson that you're super thankful for now?
As hard as it is for me to admit this, I think it was both when my mother and then when my father died. Because when my father died, that was only 7 years ago. Only 7, God, it seems like yesterday. But when they both passed, it's as if, you see, when a parent dies, it's like you lose your past. And what it did, as painful as it was, it opened up new doors for me spiritually. And I remember right after my dad passed, I was doing a reading, and it's not unusual for me to feel mom come through and assist with the readings, but then I felt dad. So I had these two great pillars of light helping me. So also, when I lost a couple of my best friends, that also showed me that I had to let go of the past and of a world and friendships that no longer existed so that I could focus my energy on what lies ahead. And those were tough. All those were really tough. The problem with lessons is they're painful and they're difficult, but on the other hand, we do grow in response to adversity. If everything were groovy baby all the time, we'd never have any motivation to grow, to change, to be inspired. And a lot of people, when they lose a loved one, they'll turn to drinking, drugs, impulsive behaviors, anger, and that's a way of dealing with death, but it's the wrong way because it's what I call grief, crime, grief. Your grief can lead you to behaviors which may lead you to criminal behavior that inflicts grief on somebody else. Think of a drunk driver. You ever meet a happy alcoholic? No, that person's hurting. Wounded people wound other people. And so that grief leads to drinking, which then leads to causing an accident which can maim or kill another person. And so we can't change the fact that somebody we love has died, but what we can do is change how we react to it. And that's what I learned from losing all these precious people, losing their physical presence. You don't lose anyone. Your relationship goes from one of a physical to one of a spiritual nature. But let me tell you, it still hurts.
You're going to get asked in a second some of the outside books, not ones you've penned, that you've relied on over the years to just check things out. But here's one of those authors, just in case. And here's the quote from Seed of the Soul, Gary Zukav. You change the way that you shape the light which is flowing through you by changing your consciousness. Talk to us about that.
I don't know if I agree with that, because the light is pure. It cannot be it cannot be eliminated, and you can't really change it because the light is the spiritual energy of the divine. Now, where I will agree with him is you can shape it because you may be changing your perception. In other words, the light is pure. It cannot be blocked. It cannot be polluted, but it can be blocked. And we can block it through our ego, through denial, through a lot of avoidance type of behaviors. But the light is pure. Nothing spiritual is controlling. It's all about peace, love, understanding, protection. So with all due respect, I beg to differ on that quote.
We'll flip the pancake here and just say opening openness. The more you're residing here, the more you're just giving yourself space to breathe or to be present, the more you've got possibility. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Eckhart Tolle, last quote thing here as part of the lightning round in the game show. He said ego implies unawareness. Awareness and ego cannot coexist. But we had Wayne Dyer say something similar. It was sort of like you can't take a hot shower and be unhappy at the same time unless they cut off the water. It's either or. You're here or you're here. We can call it unlove, love. Thinking's not going away for all of us. So it is an opportunity to slow down, maybe breathe more, remember what you can remember, if you can remember to remember, and not even that's original. That was Songyal Rinpoche, who said, remember to remember for 35 years. So last little bit, what's this whole thing about of ego, awareness, or love, unconditional love, judging, and how do you love reminding folks they've got no blocks, even though I know the outside world, my situation is, my drama is, my problem is, you don't understand, says otherwise.
I really like what he's saying there about you can't be awareness and ego, because awareness is the light that's flowing through you. It's tapping into the collective consciousness. Ego is me, 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 me. So the me, that becomes the distractions, which you were discussing earlier, which then begin to block your acceptance and learning from the light. The Buddhists talk about blowing the self out. In other words, once you remove desires from your life and the angst, you will be happy. Because desire, think about it, when you're always like, I want this. If I can get this person to love me, I'll be happy. If I can drive this car, I'll be happy. If I make this amount of money, it's like, I want, as opposed to, I'm happy.
You can be happy now in this very moment without a single reason. Angel said that one as well. We're going to blame angels in a moment. I also want to mention Dan Millman's Peaceful Warrior gymnastics film. Nick Nolte was in it, Amy Smart, Scott Meklowitz. And while you think it's a Disney level film, it is a step above Karate Kid. It's for adults, but it's exactly what you just said. That line of, I'll be happy when. And it was about the gold medal or about winning the NCAAs. And at the beginning of the movie, one gymnast is saying it, then he goes full circle, discovers his heart, goes a little broader. And the gymnast next to him at the NCAAs says the exact thing that he said at the beginning of the film, if you do a rewind. So it's all that. Okay, you're going to be wrapping us up after we do one last tiny exercise. You haven't done this with me before, but you are a co-show host with Dr. Pat. I can never pronounce names.
Silly.
And it's
you
the
call her
psychic and the
Dr.
doc.
Pat.
Yeah, Dr. Pat. That's what everybody calls her. So you know how to do that. And so you've got a little delay here to think of an inspiring, uplifting, no pressure. But look, you're going to be at Helping Parents Heal in the fall. People are going to see this in December. So we're going to be looking back at that event. And you've done tons of international speaking engagements. With your permission, only my highest intent, none of my bill-paying thinking side, my problem is, I'm going to put my hand up to you in Florida. You'll put your hand up, but only your highest intent. And feel what you can feel through the screen. And then I'm going to do this once. I'm going to whoosh rainbow light your way. I'm already feeling warmth. Are you feeling a little warmth?
Yeah. Right about here, right about there.
We're going to blame angels here. They're going to whoosh rainbow light your way. I'm only going to do it once, and I'm going to blow through a microphone. I usually have it here, right here, but my microphone's above. So I'm going to blow once, and I'm going to blow Tahiti Ocean, but it's all angels. And so here comes that rainbow light. You may feel nothing. You may feel something. We'll see. But you get one dad joke before we start. Why did the rabbit fall down that well? He didn't see that well. Here we go. Catch some sparkles. Again, blame angels. Don't blame Canada. We're all buddies here. Did you feel a little light come your way?
Yeah, I felt in the violet.
Ooh.
Violet light.
We like violets.
We like violet.
Okay, that's it. You're done. But unfortunately, now your goose is cooked. You got to close out the show. What are you going to leave us with that's inspirational, Mark? And don't forget, in 2025, you're welcome to come back on anytime. You have just delivered so much fun and joy for us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to bring up a quote from Winston Churchill. And I don't believe in hell in the literal sense, but I do believe that hell exists here on earth. I mean, think about the people of Ukraine are going through, the people in the Middle East, people that who are grappling with a terminal illness or coping with the death of a loved one, and that puts you in hell. Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, keep going. And that's what I want to leave us with.
Oh, well, Mark Anthony, thank you so much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. You're absolutely a stellar guest with some great sharing. Really appreciated it.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's been an honor to be here, and I do look forward to returning.